Missouri School of Journalism. Welcome to Global Journalist. I'm Jason McClure. For the third time in 6 years, major fighting has broken out between Israel and Hamas. Last month, 3 Israeli teens were abducted and killed in the West Bank, an attack Israel blamed on Hamas. Hamas denied responsibility for the murders. In apparent retaliation, a Palestinian teenager was kidnapped and set alight, allegedly by Israelis who have subsequently been arrested for the crime. Israel and Hamas have launched rocket attacks against each other, with Israeli rockets killing nearly 200 Palestinians in Gaza and Hamas rockets wounding almost 30 Israelis. Hamas had fired more than 1,100 rockets at Israel, and Israel had struck over 1,600 targets in Gaza since the start of the conflict. Condemnation for the attacks is spreading, and today on Global Journalist, we'll look at how the media have been covering what's going on in this part of the world. I'm joined by Abir Ayub, a freelance journalist and columnist based in Gaza, Eric Elman, a newspaper columnist based in Jerusalem, and Mohammed Abu Nimer, a professor at American University's School of International Service. Welcome to you all. Abir Ayub, in Gaza, I was hoping you could just begin by describing to us the scene right now where you are in Gaza. What's been happening? What's the mood of the people there?
Hi, first of all, thanks for hosting me, I'll say. Second, I would tell you that I'm talking to you now from a very dark room because there is no electricity in my house. Describing the atmosphere, people here are very angry because of the target that just killed 4 children. 3 of them are brothers while they were playing on the beach. People are so sad, very angry because the children were directly targeted. I mean, there was nothing beside them, and it was targeted, and they were killed. No, the gunboat shot them directly while they were playing. So it's something that's so sad, so horrible. The atmosphere here is so people are so depressed and sad.
Eric Elman, in Jerusalem, tell us about the mood there. Are people afraid? Are they concerned by the rocket attacks? What's going on?
Well, thanks to the successes of the Iron Dome missile defense system, the rocket attacks in the center of the country, in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem, they are more annoyance and disruption of normal life than a sense of mortal danger. But of course, as you go south, Ashkelon, Ashdod, the communities in the vicinity of the Gaza Strip, then the danger becomes much more acute, because Hamas is managing to shoot up those areas, not only with the long-range rockets, which they have in the limited capacity, but with the self-made rockets, which is called Qassams, and mortars as well. It was a mortar strike which killed the first Israeli casualty of this round of the conflict yesterday. And the sirens in the southern regions are much more frequent. Here, specifically in Jerusalem, we didn't have a siren for several days now. I think the last one was Sunday. And the prevailing feeling is more of disbelief that Hamas would shoot at Jerusalem because it is the holy city for 3 religions, and the rockets are so imprecise that it easily hit one of the Muslim shrines in the city. And in fact, one of those rockets overshot Jerusalem and exploded in the Palestinian area of Hebron, destroying a house. And the Palestinian Authority requested Israeli assistance in explaining to the local population how to defend itself in case the sirens will sound again, and to connect the system of civil defense to the Israeli early warning system. So the situation is, as I said, the people are more annoyed and angry that they have to go through those experiences with increasing frequency. They still remember the last round of conflict in November 2012, and they ask themselves why they have to tolerate this kind of experience. And they want, they want their government to make sure they won't have to go through this again.
Well, Mohammed Abu Nimer, you study peace building and conflict resolution. This the current conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, has to be sort of the mother of all case studies for people in your field. Why, this is the third time in 6 years we've seen this outbreak of violence between Hamas and Israel. Why does history seem to be repeating itself?
Because we are not addressing the root causes of the problem. And the root causes of the problem is really issues related to the recognition and implementation of the right for self-determination for the Palestinian people, and not only for Fatah or for Abbas government, but also for the refugees in Gaza and also in other places, and also the recognition of the right of Israel as well in the sense of security and safety. That is the root cause. The other root cause is the siege over Gaza since 2007 that has also put the entire population under some kind of a sanction and a threat. And therefore, you have a government that's unable to operate, and they need to exercise their authority as well. And I think the most recent development of the unity government has threatened some of the Israeli interests in the region, and this what we see is another exercise by the Israeli government to try and to destabilize the Hamas situation in Gaza with the unity government. But overall, let me just briefly say the root cause of the problem is the fact that there is no recognition in the right of the Palestinian people or community to exercise their right for self-determination. And the moment we in the international community try to implement that, we will have a breakthrough in the relationship.
Abir Ayub, I wanted to ask you as well, there was a lot of talk that in Gaza, Hamas had been losing support prior to this current outbreak of conflict. How do you see support for Hamas now that the missiles are flying?
I would tell you that we all used to think that Hamas lost its popularity during the few past years, but now, during the wartime, Hamas is gaining even more popularity because people believe in resistance, and they think that Hamas is doing exactly what it should do. And it's not only Hamas, I would say. I mean, the resistance is doing what Palestinians want here in Gaza want them to do. So I won't say that during the wartime, the time is good for internal clashes. So I would tell you that at this time, people are supporting Hamas 100%.
Support for the Palestinian Authority and Mahmoud Abbas.
No, but people are so angry with the PA and Mahmoud Abbas' attitude towards the murders that's happening every single day in Gaza, and he's doing nothing. He's not even condemning what's going on. People are really angry with the PA and its attitude. At the same time, they are supporting resistance in general. I wouldn't say only Hamas. So the attitude is totally different between the PA and Hamas.
And Eric Elman in Jerusalem, I was wondering if you agreed with Mohammed Abu Nimer's assessment of sort of the root causes of this conflict and why history seems to be repeating itself. I understand there's a phrase in Israel called mowing the grass. And tell me a little bit about this, and is this sort of normal in a way now?
Oh, well, look, the Israeli approach to this issue will be that in 2005, Israel gave ample opportunity to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip to self-determine themselves when Israel took out all the soldiers and all the civilians and dismantled all the settlements and withdrew to the 1967 border to the last bit of sand, if one may use this kind of word, and even evacuating the previously considered strategic area of the border between Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula. And there were those in Israel who expected that Palestinians will use this opportunity to rebuild Gaza, to create an example of how the Palestinians can coexist when they are free from Israeli intervention. And in fact, what the average Israeli will tell you now is that the result of all this grand experiment was that the most extremist force within the Palestinian community, which is Hamas, took over. And since then, Israelis in the south had had almost no their peace, and now, as the time passes, as the new weapons make their way from Iran to Gaza Strip, the more and more Israelis are feeling themselves in danger, and without regard to other attempts of Hamas to continue what was called the resistance by trying to attack Israeli positions on the border, trying to stage cross-border attacks, and so on and so forth.
We're looking at the current conflict between Israel and Hamas and how it's being covered in the media. I'm joined by Abir Ayub, a freelance journalist and columnist based in Gaza, Eric Elman, a newspaper columnist based in Jerusalem, and Mohammed Abu Nimer, a professor at American University's School of International Service. You can listen to this and other full episodes of Global Journalist on our website. That's globaljournalist.org. For more Global Journalist content, you can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter @GlobalJourn. Professor Abu Nimer, I wanted to ask you as well about what role outsiders can have in possibly trying to both end the current violence as well as work towards a longer lasting solution to the conflict. We had seen that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry had attempted to restart the peace process earlier this year, and that failed. And some people would say that has even contributed to some of the problems that we're currently having. How do you see things?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that people who wanted Kerry initiative and Obama initiatives to achieve some results in the region. But unfortunately, the U.S. intervention in this conflict has been very mild and also in some ways ineffective, because the president and the foreign policy thinking behind it has not been in a way to pressure the parties seriously and significantly to make any meaningful concessions, especially on the Israeli side, in lifting the siege on Gaza, or encouraging the unity government, or providing more aid in Gaza to relieve the suffering of the people. But as the question about the role of the international, I think it has to do with the mowing of the grass, the term that you have used, and Eric described it as necessary. It unfortunately feeds into the culture of violence, into giving the Israeli public and the Palestinian public the illusion that using weapons and using excessive force and the killing of innocent children and people in Gaza, that will buy the Israeli government time 4 or 5 years. And that's unfortunate, because every time for the last 10 years, what we see is an escalation in the cost, in the human suffering, and in the victimhood. The international community can put more political pressure from the European Union on the Israeli government and on the Palestinian, but primarily on the Israeli government, to dismantle settlements, to be more serious and forthcoming to the peace negotiation. Attacking Gaza, as Abir said, have increased Hamas popularity and lowered Abbas government legitimacy. And this is something that this provides disservice to the Netanyahu government if they were serious to negotiate with Abbas. If they're serious to negotiate with Abbas, they should not be weakening him by attacking the Gaza population.
Abir Ayub, I was hoping you could tell us just a little bit about the humanitarian situation inside Gaza. You talked about recent attacks on children on the beach. But what about access to medical care, to food, to water and electricity? How are journalists operating there? How is the population? How are they living right now?
I will tell you that this hasn't changed since 2007, when Israel imposed a totally restricted siege on the coastal enclave. So we have been suffering blackout crisis, clean water crisis, lack of medicine, lack of goods because of the constant closure of the borders. This is not new. We have been suffering this for years. But at the wartime, when you have thousands of injured people, hundreds of people being killed, and you have lack of medicine, lack of water, so things are going worse and worse and worse. And I would say that we are having a huge humanitarian crisis right now. Like even the electricity, how hospitals can be operated without having electricity for 24/7. We have generators, okay, but we don't have enough fuel to switch the generators on. The commercial borders are closed. The tunnels between Gaza and Egypt were demolished. Even Egypt is closing the Rafah border. I mean, even the patients cannot leave to get treatment outside Gaza, even through the Egyptian border of Rafah. So I would tell you that Gaza is being totally isolated in such a horrible time. Like it's being under fire, and at the same time, it's not even connected to the world. I would tell you that things are even beyond description. As I told you, thousands of injuries, and not even the basics for people to deal with war. Don't forget that we are now at the holy month of Ramadan. People cannot even afford to buy food for their children. I mean, most of the people here, they used to get their money, I mean, day by day. Like some people can work for 30 shekels, I mean, less than $10 a day. So it was like people who used to work day by day, and now they're not working. It's the holy month of Ramadan. They should buy food every single day, and people can't do that. So I would tell you it's a huge humanitarian problem.
And Eric Elman in Jerusalem, if we have you back on the line, I wanted to give you the opportunity to give us the view of how these sorts of reports of the humanitarian situation in Gaza are being digested in Israel. What does the Israeli public make of them? And then also I want to give you the opportunity to comment some on Mohammed's comments about the role of outsiders in the conflict.
So the Israeli press is reporting about the situation in Gaza, and on the other hand, they are receiving the information from the Israeli authorities and from the electricity company with regard to the situation on the border crossings, and that the Kerem Shalom crossing, which is one of the focal points of getting goods into Gaza, was shelled by Hamas even today. And in addition, as the Israeli electricity company informed that as a result of Hamas falling short, 2 of the 10 power lines which go from Israel to the Gaza Strip were cut, and they cannot risk their crews to repair it under fire. So what I'm aiming at is that the civilian losses are registered on the Israeli conscience, and the people are informed about them. But on the other hand, they cannot, for the sake of them, understand that why, if the civilian population in Gaza is suffering, why Hamas refused the offer of the ceasefire of yesterday, 15th of July, which Israel accepted and kept for 6 hours. They cannot understand why the Hamas would risk the lives of the population under its possibility to continue to shoot rockets, which bring Hamas no result at all. The public is, in fact, what I would consider a bit inured to those pictures, because if they see that Gaza is ruled by an organization which, as they consider, an implacable foe of Jews, implacable foe of the Jewish state, and they see the results as very unfortunate. Nobody is happy that Gazans are suffering, but they don't see how things can be different if they are to execute the right of self-defense. With regard of the intervention of outsiders, there is an understanding that in the end, the keys to the ceasefire, if there will be any, are in the hands of Egypt. And there is understanding that under the management of President al-Sisi, there is more understanding between Israel and Egypt on the issues regarding to Gaza. It is useful to point out that the decisions about closing the Rafah crossing and blowing up the tunnels which were connecting Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula were not undertaken by Egypt on Israel's behest, but the sovereign decisions of the Egyptian army and the Egyptian authorities, who do not really consider Hamas as the beneficial organization to them. So in the end, the question is whether the ceasefire, which will, of course, occur in future, either near or far, will bring about not only the cessation of violence, but will change the situation on the ground in the way that will point towards an end of the Hamas rule in Gaza Strip.
You're listening to Global Journalist. I'm Jason McClure. We're looking at the current conflict between Israel and Hamas and how it's being covered in the media. I'm joined by Abir Ayub, a freelance journalist and columnist based in Gaza, Eric Elman, a newspaper columnist based in Jerusalem, and Mohammed Abu Nimer, a professor at American University's School of International Service. You can listen to this and other full episodes of Global Journalist on our website. That's globaljournalist.org. Professor Abu Nimer, I want to go back to you to hear just a little bit more about why it is that this conflict, to outsiders, it would appear that both sides are continuing to escalate the conflict, and yet it would seem to be in neither side's interest to continue to do so. Can you speak to us a little bit more about why this cycle seems to continue and escalate over time?
I think it's a good observation, Jason. I think it has to do with the illusion of, I think, especially on the Israeli side, that the use of weapon, missiles, or violence, or our mistake for changing the situation on the ground, that this will solve the problem. Unfortunately, we know from many conflicts around the world for hundreds of years by now that missiles, airplanes, more killing of children will not solve the problem between Israel and Palestinians. What they need to do is to engage Hamas in dialogue, in negotiation, in conversation, as opposed to the campaign that has been launched against Hamas, delegitimize it politically since 2007. And to exercise the pressure, whether it is Egypt or U.S., on Hamas to engage in such negotiation. And I know from many records that they were trying to also engage. But starvation of the Gaza population, treating Gaza as one big prison will not bring a solution to this conflict. On the contrary, it will bring the two sides to climb a tree, and now they are up on this tree, and both of them don't know how to climb down from this awkward situation or a tragic situation. One way to go up is really to allow back-channel negotiation between the Israeli government and Hamas, and allow Abbas. Maybe Abbas government can use some of the relationship that they have had with the Israeli government for the last 21 years. Abbas government have been negotiating with the Israeli for 21 years. Maybe they have some leverage on them to negotiate with Hamas. But I want to make one point clear. There is no way around this without the recognition that Hamas is a party to this conflict. And as Abir said initially, the more power, the more weapon you put on Gaza, the more popular Hamas will become. The question that the Israeli public and Abbas should think about, who is benefiting from more popularity of Hamas? And has not been answered. The European Union and international community has to exercise power on Israel to stop the bombing of Gaza.
And Mohammed, we're losing your line just a little bit. Abir, we only have about a minute left in the show. I was wondering, in many ways, the situation has been portrayed as a hopeless one. I was wondering, just in 30 seconds, if you could give us any cause or any reason for hope that a year from now, the situation in Gaza, the conflict between Israel and Hamas will be on a more optimistic note. Are there reasons for hope?
I believe, yes, there is a reason for hope. As long as there are people in Gaza who want to live, there are people in Gaza who are resisting the injustice and the apartheid. So I think if Palestinians in Gaza continue resisting, they will achieve what they want, and they will defend the rights, and they will have the right of existence.
And Eric Elman, Abir sees continued resistance as a reason for hope. What do you see as a reason for hope in this conflict a year from now?
No, I think that I'm forced to disagree because what the Abir calls continued resistance, if the idea is to continue shooting rockets to Israel, that it will bring only death to the people in Gaza. My only hope is that in the end of this conflict, Hamas will end with a clear defeat without achieving its objectives. It will be sufficiently weakened, and the people of Gaza will see Hamas for what it is, people who, in the name of the ideology, is driving the situation in Gaza round after round into conflict with Israel, and which ends always in the many deaths of innocents in Gaza Strip, and with assistance from Egypt, which, as I said, do not see Hamas in any way as any positive force in the Palestinian or regional politics. It will be a beginning of an end of Hamas regime in Gaza, with so many regimes in the Middle East fall in the last years that there is no God's decision from above that the Gaza Strip will be ruled by Hamas forever.
That's all for this edition of Global Journalist, a production of the Reynolds Journalism Institute and the Missouri School of Journalism. Our thanks to our guests Abir Ayub, Eric Elman, and Mohammed Abu Nimer. Our executive producer is Casey Morel, with assistance from Varvara Fomina, Olga Kustaleva, Jessica Ananya, and Batul Hassan. Travis McMillan from the Reynolds Journalism Institute is our technical director, and Pat Akers of KBIA is our audio engineer. Join us again next time for another edition of Global Journalist. I'm Jason McClure. Thanks for listening.